Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome back to 10 Count. I'm Steve Fall, but on today's edition, I'm talking to a man who doesn't like heavy metal, he doesn't like rock and roll, but he does like Barry Manilow. It's Jacques Rougeau, the Mountie. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, and thank you so much, Steve, for having me on your podcast. It's always. Oh, I guess we're from Boston now, eh? Are we in the?
We
Are we
are.
live? We live from Boston.
We are in Boston right now, chit-chatting with the man, an Intercontinental champion, a tag team champion, a man who beat Hulk Hogan in Montreal. So much to talk about today, but I want to talk about who wrote that amazing song that I just quoted off the top. Was it Jimmy Hart, the fabulous Rougeaus with the All-American Boys?
Absolutely, Jimmy Hart, the greatest manager of all times, and I'll explain that to you later. Why? He's just one of the best, and he also wrote my song that I'm handsome, I'm brave, I'm strong, I'm the mountie. Jimmy Hart wrote so many music. He wrote all Hulk Hogan's music, everybody's music in WWE and WWF. It was Jimmy Hart that was
Wow.
writing because if I don't know if you know, but Jimmy Hart used to be part of a group in the '60s
Yes.
called the Gentrys, and he was like famous. He was like on the pop chart and everything, so music was in him, and I do like Barry Manilow, of course I do.
No rock and roll, no heavy metal. I love that song with your little flags too. The fabulous
We're all
Rougeaus.
American, all
Oh man.
American boys. That brings back souvenirs, huh?
Oh, I love that song. That song and the Mountie song are one of the most iconic
I'm the
wrestling theme
Mountie.
songs.
I'm
Yeah.
handsome. I'm brave. I'm strong.
Oh
I'm the
man.
Mountie, and I enforce the law. And you know what was funny about that is 30 years later, 35 years later, I'm doing Comic Cons around the world, still signing autographs left to right. And every time I meet my fans, the first thing they tell me, I love your song, man. I love your entrance. So you're not the only one, Steve. There that
Good.
really like that song.
I was gonna say there's got to be a fan club out there, the Mountie fan club, the Jacques Rougeau fan club, all singing those songs constantly to their spouses who are like, "Can you stop singing the Mountie song to me?"
Yeah, really.
That's what my wife tells me, but well, I don't want to get in trouble with her, so we'll move on.
Very funny.
So, WrestleManias, you've been involved with so many. WrestleMania 3, 93,000 fans jam-packed their asses into that arena. Now, Fabulous Rougeaus are on that card, but really, I want to talk about the atmosphere because this is 93,000 fans. This is kind of the biggest beginning moment of the WWF becoming this juggernaut of a wrestling company. Did the boys and the wrestlers feel like this was the beginning of something new?
Well, it was absolutely amazing. I remember being in the dressing room, and at that event we had to have golf carts that were bringing us to the ring. It was so far the ring from the dressing room, 93,000 people, and I remember the most iconic moment I think I have. People ask me, it's I'm a veteran now. I've been in the business for a long time, many years, and when I was in the dressing room fixing to get ready for the match, I was tying my boots and my foot was going like this, and I had a hard time putting my laces through my boots because my throat was dry. It was like one of those feelings that I'd never felt before in my whole career, and just thinking how big it was, not only the 93,000 people, but the hype and the Hulkamania that was so huge and being seen around the world on pay-per-view. I think that was the beginning of an era that will never be compared to even today. I don't think I was at the Hulk Hogan's hanging out the other night. He's got a karaoke bar in Clearwater, and I went there a couple of nights ago, and had so much fun. But it's amazing because I saw Hulk, and the karaoke started at 8 o'clock. I was there at 7 o'clock, and they sat me VIP in the front there. They had a
Well, of
really
course.
nice thing. No, they were really nice to me, and I had my girlfriend and me, a couple of friends, and but it was amazing because when it started at 8, but at 8:30, after a couple of songs, Hulk came out. They introduced, and it was like the same charisma, the same atmosphere as seeing the Hulkster coming out of the dressing room, coming in the fans in the Hulkamania years, but it was for music, karaoke. It was
It's
just an
amazing.
amazing feeling. It was so mind blowing for me. It was like going back in time. It was amazing. And then I had to sing for him. I sang Jailhouse Rock.
He approved of the singing, though. He approved.
But you know what was so ironic about all that is that I sang the song from Elvis, Jailhouse Rock, thinking of the Big Boss Man match I had. I spent the night in jail.
Oh my God.
So we were rocking in the cell there, you know. But but what a great time! But what a great time! Yeah.
That's amazing. And, you know, what's funny is WrestleMania 3, as an outsider looking in, people always look at the Hulk Hogan body slamming Andre the Giant as the monumental beginning of everything that comes next. The run, the wrestling buddies, the action figures, the posters. Like, people, I think, bring up the Attitude Era with Austin and The Rock as being like, oh, it was the most. But, like, that's because times had changed a little bit. If you go back to the 80s and the beginning of the golden era, people call it, Hogan was everywhere.
You know, Steve, you can't have the future without having the present, and you can't have the present without having the past.
Yes.
And you know, if you look into wrestling, you know, now we're living in our days and everything, but people have no idea when it was the Hulkamania days.
Yes.
Like, you know, when Hulk came out, it was so big, so huge. The first tour we did, my brother Raymond and I, we went to Australia. The first day we started for WWF was in Australia. We had 37 hours of flying. We went from Montreal to Toronto, Toronto, Los Angeles to Hawaii, Hawaii, Auckland, New Zealand, Auckland, New Zealand, we went to finally Melbourne. But it was like, and then we got off, and then 3 hours later, we were in the ring against the Moondogs. You know, but
Oh
that
my
was
God.
1986. It was amazing, but it was huge. You know, we'd get on the airplanes. It's not like today. We'd get on the airplanes, and the flight attendants, you know, they'd say, example, like, welcome to Chicago O'Hara. And we like, by the way, to welcome the WWF superstars and Hulk Hogan. You know, it's like, you know, you'd say like,
Yeah.
and everybody in the plane was like, what? You know, Hulkamania was something amazing.
It truly was. It truly was. And I hold on. I have my Hulk Hogan over here. My got my wrestling buddy. There he is.
There you go. There you go.
I was like,
I'm
like, is he over there? Let me go grab him. You know, why wasn't there a Mountie one? I'm still upset about this. Keeps me up at night.
I'm gonna have to send you a doll there, a Mountie doll there.
I have a Mountie action figure, but it's buried in my, you know, collection of wrestling memorabilia. As you can tell, there's a plethora of it behind me as well. Though there's so much.
After today, you're gonna have to put it up there.
I will be honored. I will put the Mountie right here. We'll push my mask away, Stone Cold, Owen Hart away. We'll have Mountie statues dedicated to you.
You know.
But so before you started talking about this amazing project, you did mention for 30 years you did not watch WWE or wrestling in general. But why the falling out? Why the Vince McMahon fallout?
Well, the big fallout was, you know, first of all, people got to understand that in my days, you know, I was there for like 11 years in the WWF, 3 characters. Yeah. And, you know, when you're there and you're working 25 days a month, taking like 4 or 5 planes a week, traveling the 3, 4, 5, 6 hour flights from country to country, from town to town, lose your luggage, can't eat well, you know, and everything that goes with it, you get like in a zombie loan. You know, you only see your kids like 5 days a month. You're gone for 25 days. You go home, you see your kids for 5 days, and it takes sometimes one day to travel to get home, and then you only spend like 3 days at home because the next day you got to travel to start back in Tokyo or in England or whatever. You know, so it was really worldwide at the time. You know, and so it was 25 days on. So you get in this frame of mind where it's hard, and that's why a lot of the guys were drinking and they were doing drugs and because they were trying to kill this time that was so hard on the road. I guess, you know, it was very hard. And what we live on and what I'd lived on and thrived on is getting better or getting a better position, like, you know, getting a better push, and that's the only thing that would keep you going. And you know, and at one time, and I think the time that my mind just quit on me, it was at WrestleMania 10 when we were wrestling the moms, Men on a Mission, the 2 big guys. They're
Mabel and Mo.
You know, Mabel and Mo, exactly.
Yeah.
What great guys. And you know, and we were tag teams. Me and Carl, the Quebecers, the tag team champions for the 3rd time during that year. But what happened is, 5 months before we went to WrestleMania, 5 months now, it's a long time. You'll see why. 5 months, and we kept getting beat by every team that was in the WWE, every team. We go into Montreal, my hometown, and we do a job for the guys that were there. We go to Toronto. We get beat everywhere. And Vince kept telling us, don't worry, guys, because at WrestleMania 10, you're going against Men on a Mission, and you're going to get a big win there. So you'll take all your merchant value back. Like, if you win at WrestleMania 10, you beat the Men on a Mission, you get all your credibility back.
Right.
So what we did is for 5 months is making everybody look good and helping them out. But at WrestleMania 10, it's our moment. And 1 hour or 2 hours before the show, Pat Patterson came to see me backstage, and he says, and boy, what a job he had to do, because he came to see me and he knew I'm a funny kind of guy. But anyway, so he came up to me and he said, Jacques, he says, can I have a word with you? And I said, Carl, I said, sure, Pat, sure. He says, listen, he says, Vince was thinking, if we beat the Men on a Mission tonight, he says, what are we going to do with them? And I looked at him, I said, and I was thinking to myself, I don't give a shit. For the last 5 minutes, we did what we had to do. This is our time tonight, WrestleMania 10. And he says, yeah, but Jacques, he says, Vince, I said, can I have a meeting with Vince, please? And I went, and then so I went. I had my meeting with Vince. I got in the room with Vince. I told him to take his booking book out there, his towns that he had booked for the next months and his shows. And I went with him through every town he had. And 2 months later, his book became vacant after Tel Aviv and Israel. That was the last 2 shows we were booked at in his book. And then I told him on the next day, I said, I'm finishing there. It's finished. And from that day on, it was like, and coming back to explain to people why I did this, because being on the road and so hard and living on promises and hopes like that, and after so many years, it becomes heavy on your shoulders. And I could go ahead and tell you, like, for people to understand more why I did it. I have some regrets. I'm not going to lie. I'm not perfect. But I said, just to give you an example what kind of guy I am, because I say I'm a funny kind of guy. You have normal people here and you have autistic people here. I should be around here somewhere. And it's like, so I always had a hard time understanding and comprehending things. Like everything, there was no gray in my life. It was always black or white,
Yeah.
and a lot of guys didn't survive that mental problem too. Like we could just go back and think of Chris Benoit. We could think of there's so many guys that broke in the business, that broke because they hang on by a thread, we could think of I'm thinking of the screw job in Montreal, where Bret and Shawn Michaels where Bret had to leave the company and he didn't want to leave the belt and do the job. And there's a lot of times that it becomes real life problems when you're on the road.
Right.
And so anyway, so I dealt with that in a funny kind of way. I lost it. It was like that day at WrestleMania, I just lost it. And from then on, we had a little comeback, a little this, but it was never the same, because if you tell me something, well, let's reverse the roles. If I tell you, Steve, I'm going to be with you on the podcast at 10 a.m., I'll be there at 10 a.m. And then that's the kind of guy I am. And bottom line, so I've always lived by that motto. We had the dress code. We were always on time. We were always credible wrestlers. We were all dependable wrestlers. Vince always used us, Vince, in meeting. Like, the guys were late or something, and everybody was there in the dressing room, and he'd go ahead and turn around and says, why can't you guys be like the Rougeau? That would put a lot of heat on us, because,
I bet.
Yeah. But that's the kind of guys we were. It's just the kind of guys we were. So from that day on, a thing went downhill. As a matter of fact, I honestly feel, Steve, from the bottom of my heart, if it wasn't for that big fight we had and all that the Rougeaus would be in the Hall of Fame, because everybody else that we work with, everybody that we work like months and years together, the Heart Foundation, the Rockers, the Bulldogs, Tito Santana, everything that I've accomplished, in my year, the Mountie is incredible, the Big Boss Man pay-per-view, in the Jailhouse match, and I could go on and on and on about all the things I've accomplished in 11 years. And I think that he's giving me a receipt, Vince, for not putting me in the Hall of Fame.
Interesting, because of all the because you look at the people who have joined, for example, Hulk Hogan and Vince, Ultimate Warrior and Vince, Bret Hart and Vince. Like, there's a list of people who are in the Hall of Fame who had clearly, we all know about the issues they've had backstage and on camera. But the fact that you're saying that this one fight might have stopped this process from you being in the Hall of Fame is very interesting, because there are people who are in the Hall of Fame who I'm always like, that person? And and,
So
I'm
I'm not
not a
gonna
wrestler, and I'm not a wrestler, so I
I'm
don't want
not
to
going to put
discredit
any
anybody.
words in your mouth. I'm not going
No.
to put any words in your mouth. But 2 nights ago, I was with Hulk.
Right.
Hulk said, he told me, he says, I can't understand. He says, Brutus the Barber Beefcake's in the Hall of Fame and the Fabulous Rougeau brothers.
No, no. Why is Hulk putting the bus on Brutus like that?
But anyway, I'll just to say, and I look at that sometimes and I see like Donald Trump's in the Hall of Fame. Like I'm saying, like, hey,
Yeah.
I don't know who was there, and I'm sure that everybody's in the Hall of Fame deserves to be there. But Cyndi Lauper's going to be in the Hall of Fame, I think, this year. It's all good. They did a song, she did something, but she didn't give 11 years of marathon matches for an hour matches
Right.
or everything that we've accomplished over the years. And I always said to myself, and I always tried to get this message to Vince lately, everywhere I pass, is like, Vince, if you see the movie companies, you're into movies now sometimes and stuff like that, to create Batman, you need a good Joker.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of guys like Barry Horowitz, like Steve Lombardi, guys that that were there to make us look good, to make all you guys look good, and they're not in the Hall of Fame. But the truth of the matter is if for months and years you would have seen Steve Lombardi beat everybody because he's such a great worker, and you would have seen him being put over in every different kind of angles and stuff, he could have been in the Hall of Fame too. So it takes a good Joker to make a good Batman. And I think the Fabulous Rougeau brothers, the Mountie and the Quebecers, we were there and we've accomplished those jobs for like 11 years. And I think, that we have our place. And isn't that conceited? But anyway, I think
No,
we
I
have our
don't. I
place.
don't think it's conceited. I think you sometimes, if someone's not going to promote you, who's going to promote you? Yourself. If someone's not going to give you credit, then you have to give yourself the credit because someone else isn't going to do it clearly. But I'm here to do it. I think you. And like the thing is, some people are in there twice.
Yeah,
Twice?
and what's amazing too? I can't. And since we're around your area, I got to tell you, so many historical matches at the Boston Gardens.
Of course.
Holy mackerel! Even the net, because people were going so wild, they were throwing things in the ring. They put a net there after a while.
You got to do to protect the boys. You got to protect the wrestlers.
If I want to be in the Hall of Fame, I'd have to remind the Boston Bruins how they got beat up by the Montreal Canadiens. I'm trying to get them.
Oh,
I'm trying to get some votes.
that's not. Fabulous Rougeau should not go in the Hall of Fame now for that exact comment. No, that's hilarious. Those are fighting words, sir. Those are fighting words. But I want to talk about something else, though. WrestleMania 7, this event was very interesting because it's supposed to be in one arena, Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, a sports arena, and it gets moved because of the idea that Sergeant Slaughter's Iraqi sympathizer character was too much heat and they couldn't protect the arena because of how large it was. You're on this card. You fought Tito Santana. But yet, what do you know about WrestleMania 7 being moved from an arena that had 70,000 fans to like 15,000 fans for safety reasons?
I don't know. You're teaching me something now. You actually are. There's a lot of things that go by that we don't see because we're. How many times in the conversation you say you don't see things because you're too close to the action or something like
Yeah.
that. So I didn't see that. I didn't know that. You're actually. I'm learning this from you now. I didn't know. So we moved from 70,000 people to 15,000 because of a security
Yes.
condition.
The Gulf War was going on at the time, and there was even suspicion of bomb threats at the Super Bowl that year. So the WWE brought up the situation as, oh, we're reasoning we're moving is because of safety reasons. But at the time, ticket sales were not moving as fast as they hoped.
Maybe
That's why
why.
that's why all of us put connect the dots and go, well, is it a safety reason or is it you couldn't sell tickets and you're using this as a clutch? And that's fine. Business is business. You don't want to have an empty arena. It looks bad on TV. So I was wondering if you knew.
But Los Angeles, no, I didn't, and I think you're more. I think you know how the story more than I think you said the right thing. It was probably in a promotional because they always wanted to show themselves being sold out all the time.
Yes.
Sold out, sold out, sold out. So I'm thinking Los Angeles is not the only time that I have some souvenirs there. I got to tell you a souvenir real fast. One day we're at the hotel in the afternoon. I got two more souvenirs, Los Angeles. Now that you bring them up, one there was me and Dino Bravo and Raymond were on the second floor at the near the Arco Arena in Sacramento. And we're at the hotel during the day, and me and Dino and Raymond were talking. Next thing you know, is like, I don't know if you get the picture, but it starts shaking. It starts shaking in the room, and we're on the second floor, and there was an earthquake.
Oh my
You
God.
know, I'm telling you, if you know, we heard about stuff like that in Montreal, Canada, but we never lived any. And I'll tell you what, I started in my pants there. It started to feel a little wacky. And I was me and Dino, and I remember opening the curtains and seeing all the edge, like you know, the edges of grass and everything going like this, and I was going like I thought it was the end of the world.
Oh
But
my
you know,
God.
that was one souvenir I have, and the other souvenir I have from Los Angeles, I got to tell you, it's pretty wild. Also, is yeah, we're at the hotel again, and then we get the call from the agent, like guys, it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, guys, take your bags, go to the airport, fly to Phoenix. We all book flights, fly to get out of there. And we're not doing the shot tonight. It's canceled. And hurry up and get to the airport. Hurry up. And we were like, okay. And when we got to the airport, we could see it on TV. There was a O.J. Simpson that was chasing in the white van. No. It was no. I'm sorry, I'm mixing up. It was a Rodney King beating.
Oh.
You know, they beat that guy there.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
police beat.
Yep.
And there was riots everywhere, I guess, where the sports arena was, you know, and everywhere they were building, tearing up buildings and stuff. So I remember that the agent called us and told us to get out of Los Angeles because it was a riot, you know, and that's a souvenir. I have a flashback.
Oh no, I love it. I recall during that time as well, the Big Boss Man had a storyline with Mr. Perfect, and Bobby Heenan dropped in some Rodney King jokes on events, and people were like, "Oh my God!" Like,
Really?
you're like,
Oh,
"Oh God, what are you doing?" But it's
my
wrestling.
goodness.
It's wrestling. Sometimes people consider it too real, or they say it's too fake, and I'm like, I don't. You can't
But,
pick and
but,
choose.
but you know, Vince doesn't miss one, you know.
Yeah, trust me. We could sit here all day and go through characters that existed during certain times and be like, that was a character, but
Hey,
you know, I don't want to talk
it's
about that. 91 SummerSlam though. I want to move on to that because this is an event that I think might be the greatest Mountie moment. This was so much fun. A jailhouse match between you and the Big Boss Man. The loser has to go to jail that night, and yet you lost. But not the match isn't what the memorable part is. It's the aftermath of that event. You being arrested, you flipping off the camera while putting your finger on top of the
well, they wanted my finger. They said,
fingerprints.
"Give me your finger. Give me your finger." Then I said, "Okay, you want my finger? You get my finger." And but the funniest thing of that is when this character started, I could tell you about the Mounties, the real Royal Canadian Mounties in Canada. They banned me from TV in Canada. I wasn't allowed to wrestle anymore because my character was they were so
because you were pretending to be a Mountie, so they don't respect
but
that.
they took me off TV because I was giving a bad image. They really took it seriously. But you know, I'll give you an example of why. When my first character appeared, you know, they were doing vignettes at the time. Before a character would come in the business, you know, and be on the road with everybody and doing
Oh yeah,
house shows.
I love
They
those
show,
vignettes.
they show vignettes like 4 or 5 weeks before they show vignettes. And my first vignette, now imagine this. Now I'm on my horse in Montreal, Quebec, and I'm in a park, and I'm on my horse, and this car pulls up. Now we're in Quebec; it's French now. So anyway, this car pulls up beside me, and they got this young kid in there with his girlfriend. So he puts his window down, and it's two Americans, but they're lost. They're trying to get back home to the United States. So this guy puts the window down, and I'm from my horse up on top, and then he looks at me and he says, "Excuse me, officer. Excuse me, officer." And I look down to him, and I'm not an officer. I'm the Mountie. You know, so the guy looks at me like this. Holy shit. He looks at his girlfriend in the car like, oh boy, I just got a wacko here. So then he turns back up to me and he says, "Excuse me, Mr. Mountie." He says, "Can you tell me how to get back to the US? We're lost." And I'm looking at him, you know, with my face like, and I get off my horse and my character and everything. And I look at him. I said, "Come here." So he doesn't want to get out of the car. So his girlfriend says, "Come on, get out." So then he follows me and I bring him to the front of my horse. And then I take my horse's mouth like this underneath and I put it up like this. And I look at him and I said, "You see this part of my horse? It always points towards Canada. Come here." And then I brought him in the back of the horse. And then I lifted the tail up and the donut was right in the camera. You know? And I said, "You see this part of my horse? It always points to the United States." And the guy just looks at me like big eyes and he jumps in his car and he spins his wheels and he gets out of there. That was a vignette that was showed for like 4 or 5 weeks.
Oh yeah.
I gotta tell you, my first 3 towns I did, Philadelphia Spectrum, Long Island, Nassau Coliseum, and the Boston Gardens. And you guys are patriotic, man. I gotta tell you, a lot of people took this seriously. You know, you guys don't have the sense of humor. I got to tell you,
Hey, hey,
because
why are you fighting me today? What are we
but
doing here?
no. I'm just saying that this was amazing because when I go down like the building to go like where the hockey players come in the building in the
Oh yeah.
back there, the ramp. I remember the first day I parked, I got out of my car and I got hit on the head. The next thing, and people were throwing rocks at me, and that was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Those were diehard fans that would show up early at the building, you know, like
Wow.
groupies that I call, and they just throw rocks at me, and the character they were so pissed off at me, like, you know, really
I guess you're
raging.
doing your job, right? You know.
I was just being a Mountie, you know, and but what a great character, and what a great time going to jail and all that. And Big Boss Man, you know, God rest his soul, with Lanny Poffo, who lately
Yeah.
passed away too. But Ray Traylor, you know, one of my greatest friends. You know, we traveled the world together and work in every arena, 10, 15, 20,000 people every night, and it was so fun to work with that guy because us the old school wrestlers, we were brought up with a different motto. We were brought up like, example, if you're in the ring with a guy and you're doing a high spot with him or an acrobatic move with him, if ever you lost your balance, well, the first rule was you make sure that the guy that gave you his body, he falls straight on the mat, and you
Mm,
fall crooked. You hurt yourself.
right.
You got to give your body because he gives you your body, you know. And Ray Traylor, we used to do those slams, those power slams, and this and everything every night, and he would never hurt me. It was such a pleasure working with him. So you could work every night. And every time I remember going in the dressing room, and every time I'd get in the room, and if I'd see like on the card that I'm wrestling Big Boss Man or Tito Santana, which was another great one, or the Hart Foundation or the Rockers, you know, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, when it was always a night off. You know, we always knew that would go in the arena and have their people on their feet, like, you know, at the end of our performance, and that was great nights.
Yeah, that SummerSlam though, that again, not the match, but the aftermath of you being put in jail with a man in jail suggesting he's probably going to do some things to you here in this jail, and you're screaming for help. That to
Yeah.
me is one of the most iconic moments because if you go in that era of the WWF, you look at the matches are great, but the backstage antics of, say, like Ultimate Warrior in Papa Shango, you know, or like Earthquake destroying Jake the Snake Roberts' Snake Damien. Like these are moments versus matches. And I think the moments have been lost as years have gone on, where they're like, oh, we need to have 5-star matches. You can have a 5-star match every night you want. But guess what? Is it a moment I'm going to remember from that? Probably not.
I'm just, you're bringing back so many good souvenirs, you know, of the Mountie, and I just hope the Mountie makes it to the Hall of Fame one day, you know,
He will.
because you know these moments you could never take. You know, it's funny about the Mountie. Another thing that's really funny about the Mountie is, you know, that Brett was one of my best friends. I started wrestling in Calgary in 1977 for his dad. He was driving a bus at the time. He wasn't even a wrestler. And you know, and then he was putting up the ring and doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I remember what was I wanted to tell you something I forgot.
Well, we'll talk about
Anyway,
Bret Hart right now because in January of
it'll come back.
'92,
Oh yeah, I'm
you
sorry.
beat
So
Bret Hart for the Intercontinental title because he on TV he had
exactly.
103 temperature, but in reality he was negotiating underneath the table with WCW as Intercontinental Champion, as he would do in '97 as the WWF Champion.
You're blowing my mind now. That's what I was going at there. It was like Brett was my best friend everywhere outside the ring and everything got along good, but Brett was a very hard man to do business with. Like, you know, so Brett, I think at the time, he didn't want to drop the belt to Piper, you know, the Intercontinental. So
Yeah.
they used me for an intermediate, like, you know, because, you know, I was only 2 days champion, the Intercontinental champion for 2 days. I beat Brett, like you said, because he said he was sick. He had to announce that he was sick. So I beat nobody. I beat a sick guy. And then the next thing, you know, is Piper beats me. And you know, so I had it for 2 days. But here's the funny thing about it. 35 years later, 33 years later, I'm going in Comic Cons. I was in England last month, in Los Angeles last week. I'm going everywhere. I'm going to Philadelphia next week. I'm going, and everywhere I go, people come with the Toys R Us dolls and the figurines. And there I got the belt around my waist. And a lot of people say, you were the greatest Intercontinental champion, when they should know that I was the shortest lived ever Intercontinental champion, but it made an impact.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like, you know, that people remember me as the Intercontinental champion and I was only there for 2 days. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a funny story. When I won the belt that night, I called the newspaper guy in Montreal because I always marketed myself. Like you said, we got to market ourselves, you know. So I called this newspaper guy in Montreal. That really, he's just a stud. He's got a full page in the Montreal paper. Like, you know, there's 2 million people that watch his page every day. So he's a friend of mine. So I called him up. I said, Andre. So I called him up at 11 o'clock at night. But he's an old man. Like, he's like 60, 65 years old. So he's sleeping since 9, I guess. So anyways, I called him.
Probably 7.
So I call him at yeah. So I call him. I'm being nice. So I call him at 11, and I call him at 11, and I say I wake him out of bed, and I said, Andre, I said the Jacques, I said I'm in Springfield, Illinois, and you know, and Massachusetts. I'm in Springfield, Massachusetts, and I just won the Intercontinental title. I said I'm going to send you a picture. Is that okay? So he says like this. He says, Jesus Christ, Jacques. It's 11 o'clock at night. He says, listen, I got hockey tomorrow. I got that. He says, call me in a few days. I said, no. I said, I can't. I can't, because I knew in a few days I wouldn't be champion anymore. So anyway, so he put the picture in the paper. But that was just funny because, you know, I only had 2 days to put the picture in the paper. But so it was a great moment. And it's so funny because even my students in my wrestling school, I had a wrestling school for 20 years before COVID. And then all my students, they bought me the Intercontinental title. Everybody relates to me as being a champion, an Intercontinental champion, when I was only just a hand switch from Piper to Brett, from Brett to Piper, you know.
Well, I think because at the time, if you look at championships, it didn't change hands so often. So if anytime you had it for a day or 2 days or a week or a month, it didn't matter because you were Intercontinental champion. Because it wasn't like everyone became champion at the time. You know, Mr. Perfect, Texas Tornado, Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart, British Bulldog, you know, Shawn Michaels. You go through the list. It's very short for those like 10 years that we call the golden era of wrestling, from like 85 to like 95. So you being on that list will forever be remembered as the greatest Intercontinental champion of all time. With the shock stick, you fighting Piper with the shock stick, and him clearly wearing 2 shirts, and then him taking off shock proof. That was my first ever wrestling event I watched on TV.
Really?
Oh yeah,
that was my idea. I gotta tell you,
that's the greatest thing ever.
I wanted to protect my business, my gimmick, you know, because no one had ever gotten up from the shock stick. So I came up with that idea, like, you know, say, hey, I got an idea, and I proposed it to him, and he loved it, you know. So when I gave the shock, and then he gets up in the anti-shock there, or shock proof on his shirt there, they really liked the idea. So that protected my gimmick too. So it didn't take anything away from my shock stick. It didn't take any credibility away. But Piper wasn't an easy guy to work with, I got to tell you.
So, but you mentioned Bret Hart being hard to work with. Why do you think Bret Hart?
No.
Well, why didn't, business-wise, why didn't Bret Hart, you think, want to lose to Piper? I get it. Good guy as a fan interaction who you're cheering for.
I think Bret just wanted to be as important as Piper, you know, and I think Bret there was a battle of egos and a battle at the time, you know, and stuff like that. But there's a difference now. Bret was a great guy to work with in the ring. Great guy to work. I'd love to work with him every night. It's on the outside politics that was a little harder. On the opposite, Piper was a great guy outside the ring. You know, great guy. But in the ring, man, I'm telling you, he was a machine. Like, you know, he wasn't a guy that was, maybe it was Vince also that asked him to do that because he was just, or whatever had happened, but he wasn't very generous, you know, towards me. When I got in the ring, I had to fight for everything I could get. Like for the minute I had him down for a second where I could just barely take the mic and scream, I am the Mountie, he was up on his feet again. Like, you know, he wasn't a very generous guy. But I love the guy, you know, he's a very nice guy. But a lot of the guys, and sometimes I ask myself, you know, because when we came in the business in '86, Raymond and I, we had one philosophy, was like, whatever the Vince asks, yes, sir, and yes, sir. We were called yes men. And then you had other guys that sometimes were hard, like harder guys that wouldn't want to do jobs or wouldn't want to do things. And we'd look at them like, what kind of idiots? Like, and now I'm starting to look back at it a little differently. I'm starting to look at it like maybe we were the idiots.
Maybe you shouldn't be saying yes to everything.
Maybe I shouldn't have said yes because all the time. Maybe that wasn't the right way of doing business. Like, you know.
Well, you know, sometimes we don't know what we've done in the past, but it led us to where we are now. So obviously, whatever you did in the past, here you are now today, sitting here chit-chatting with me. So I guess all those decisions were really well for, at least for me, at least. But you bring up Bret Hart for a second, and it's funny about the Intercontinental title situation where he was champion and he was negotiating with WCW as champion. But no one really knew about that story until way later during the Montreal screwjob situation where he was WWF world champion. And Alundra Blaze before that showed up on an episode of WCW Nitro, dumped the women's championship in the trash. Now, it's the women's title at the
Really?
time.
I didn't know that. I didn't know
Oh,
that.
yeah. So Alundra Blaze, Medusa,
Yeah.
showed up after being laid off by the WWF with the women's championship, dumps it in the trash live on WCW Nitro. So that's a big moment in wrestling lore of the Monday Night Wars. And then you flash forward, Bret Hart is world champion. We all know he's leaving if you're on the internet. We all know he's going to WCW, but he's champion. So what's your perspective on this? Because you're talking about being a yes man saying whatever the boss needs, I'll do it. Bret Hart at this time seems to be the opposite of, listen, I don't want to, the idea of what he said, I don't want to lose in Montreal. And plus he hated Shawn Michaels. So there's a lot of circumstances heading into Montreal. What are your thoughts?
That has nothing to do with nothing. If you're working for Coca-Cola,
yeah,
and you get a job offered by Pepsi, you can't go to Pepsi with the Coca-Cola truck.
Yes.
Bottom line, after everything that was given to Bret, everything that was given to him, all the opportunities, the titles, the exposure, and everything they did for him, Bret, he had to give the belt back in a very honorable way. That was the only decision to do. And I think Vince did the absolutely right thing to do. He worked it with Earl Hebner. I think it was Earl. I'm not sure,
yep.
Earl or Dave.
Oh, yeah,
it was Earl. He worked it with Earl Hebner, and he worked it with Shawn Michaels. Like, say, hey, Bret doesn't want to do business. We have to do it in a different way. And I agree 100 miles an hour with what happened. Because, you have to give back the belt honorably, especially after holding it and everything that he did with Vince did with him and gave him,
Yeah.
So I think, and me personally, because I remember one time, then again in 1987, Raymond and I, we beat the Hart Foundation in Montreal for the title belts, for the world title belts. Nobody knows that in the business. The reason why is because when we beat them in the big show in Montreal, there was 20,000 people. When I went to my car after the show, there was 5,000 people. 5,000 people. Let me get this up. There was 5,000 people in the streets waiting for us like a Stanley Cup, the Rougeos. And then 3 days later in the newspaper, there was a little article saying because it wasn't the right guy in the ring, the titles have not been switched. They've been switched back to the Hearts and won everybody. And there's about maybe 100,000 people that saw that ad in the paper. But there was like 8 million people that knew that the Rougeos were on the news that night. We were everywhere that we won the belts, the WWF, the World Tag Team belts, when they meant something at the time.
Yeah.
So it's like, so it's the biggest thing in Quebec. So everybody's tuned in on Saturday to go see the show, WWF, to see the Rougeos champions. So the 7.9 million people who didn't know, that didn't see the article that we weren't champions anymore, they turned into TV on Saturday and they saw the Hart Foundation come in with the belts and not even acknowledging that we beat them in Montreal. That was the biggest screw job in Montreal, but nobody knows that. And I think that, and I heard that they did that also, and with the Rockers in Texas, they did that with a couple of places where they give. So that
happened to you a couple times though. The Quebecers with I think, was it Men on a Mission at a house show? What was like, someone didn't pop up their shoulder properly, and so someone won the tag team titles, or it's the Head Shrinkers. Either way, this has happened to you a couple times.
But that wasn't intentional.
Right, that was by accident. This one was intentional.
Intentionally done. It's like, to me, it's like giving a candy to the people where you're going at, and then taking it away from them. It's like a false. You never see the Montreal Canadiens win the Stanley Cup, and then about three days later, they take it away because the goal didn't pass the line. Or what's done is done. I think it was an insult to the people in Quebec, and I think those were bad decisions taken by Vince. But I don't think it comes from him. I think it comes from the fact that the Hearts, Bret, didn't want to drop the titles to us in Montreal. And so if I'm coming back and I'm acknowledging everything and I think of everything over the years, Bret's one of my best friends, but one of the worst businessmen. I say selfish because he would always think about him, and it's too bad. And so what happened at the screw job in Montreal with Shawn Michaels? I'm not saying that I was happy, but I'm gonna say that karma. It's like a little bit of karma in there.
Interesting you say that, because a lot of people are always on the side of Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels in this situation because of the buildup of Shawn Michaels' backstage antics being well known to wrestling fans who are reading, say, the Wrestling Observer or online in 1997. So there's always this perception of we're on Bret's side, not Shawn's. But in reality, what you're saying is hey, you were there. You're friends with him. You're very aware of his business savviness, and possibly he wasn't doing business for the rest of us, because usually the rule, maybe you understand, the rule is when you're leaving somewhere, you do the job.
Of course.
Because that, like you said, that company made, like, Bret Hart was a great wrestler, but what if you're wrestling in front of 100 people in a high school? How are you the greatest wrestler of all time? You have to have the platform to be presented as the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. No one will know who you are unless you're, on TV, on the platform. So being built up as one character and not leaving was a very weird thing. For still fans to this day, and I still love Bret Hart as a character on TV, but I don't know him personally. So seeing that situation play out on TV, you're like,
And I'm
wow.
even going. I'm going to go further, Steve. Because I'm a mark too. Sometimes I think I know things and I don't. And a lot of people told me, like, they think that it was a work when he punched Vince. And
Yes.
so who's telling the truth and all that? Was this just a big angle for the people and for the boys? Was this? Yeah, it goes beyond and beyond. I guess the only two who know the truth, the only two or the only four I'd say, is Earl Ebner, Shawn Michaels, Vince, and Brett. Those are
Yeah.
the only four guys that will ever know really the truth.
I
You know,
think, again, my perspective, I think it's real. Like, I think it's real because it seems like Bret Hart, for the rest of his life after that point, until he made amends in 2005, was obsessively talking about being screwed over. Shawn Michaels didn't talk about it because he went home because he had a back problem. Earl Hebner was still employed. Vince McMahon's not going to sit around and be like, hey, remember that time I screwed this guy over? Why would he? He doesn't need to. He's the boss. He's the guy. If you're going to lip off to him, he
yeah.
can just treat you like shit and fire you. So he doesn't have to listen to your garbage if he doesn't want to. But, you left the WWF, though, in 92. You came back in 93 as a tag team. And then, again, you leave again. And then 96, you go to WCW. Then you come back to the WWF in 1998. Then you go back to WCW in 2000. Why the ping ponging so much? Like, was there, like, you brought up the Vince McMahon story from WrestleMania 10? Did that set off a chain of events that you could
Yeah,
never really reconcile?
exactly. I think, and Jim Ross was the promoter when I came back to WWF for that short time. And Jim Ross, now, was it him that didn't like me, or was it Vince that was telling Jim Ross that we weren't treated like, we became just middle guys and doing jobs and no future and no promise. It was a very happy time. There was I think, like I said, after you cross a point in your life with someone like that, and I'm sure that Vince McMahon, he looks at it in a different kind of way, because I always say there's three sides to the story. There's my side, there's his side, and there's the one on the outside that looks at both stories and makes his own conclusion.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that Vince, he looks at it like, Jacques, he's an unappreciated kind of guy. I gave him this, I gave him that, I gave him this, and I changed my mind at WrestleMania for that. That shouldn't. And he probably has a good point. And me, on the other hand, being on the road 25 days a month, far from my family, and trying to stay on top and working out and being professional like I am, I inspired on big things. I
Yeah.
was, and like I said, I was. If you tell me, give me something. If you say this big, well, don't give it to me this big, because it ain't gonna work in my mind. So if you say you're gonna give me this, then I'm gonna work and focus that I'm gonna get that. And then, and you become, like I said, you become really. How can I say that? You're on the road, you get depressed, you have fights with your family at home sometimes, you have a lot of problems, you can't solve them, you're not there, you get a lot of pressure on the road. There's a lot, people don't know there's a lot more than just being famous around the ring 25 days a month. So that takes a toll, it becomes heavy. So at the end of 10 years or 11 years, the more time you give in, the harder it gets. And so I could honestly say today that I have my faults. I have my faults. I took some wrong decisions, I'm sure, and but I know he did too. So
Right.
I say now, I said, why don't we put bygones be bygones? Let's turn the page and let's look at all the great moments that we've had together, and just put me in the Hall of Fame,
I
where
agree.
I deserve to be with Raymond and my brother Raymond, and if it's not with Raymond, then just the Mountie. And if it's not the Mountie, then put the Rougeau name in there. 4 generations: my uncle, my father, my great uncle. The Rougeau names are like the Von Erichs, or like the Harts.
Yeah.
They're like the Welches, Robert Welch and Ron Welch and the Fullers. You know those family. They were 4 generations too. It's like you can't take those families of Von Erichs and all those families and just not acknowledge them, because when you look at the wrestling today, you say, like we said before, it all started with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
But Hulk Hogan started with the Von Erichs
Oh
and,
yeah.
and the
And,
Gagnes and the
and Nick
Rougeaus
Nick
and the Grahams
Bockwinkel and all
and the
those people.
Grahams
Yeah.
and all those guys, the Briscoes.
Well,
You
let me
know,
stop
there's
you. I was at a press conference in Montreal for Elimination Chambers in February. Well, we are in February as we record right now. But Triple H went through the history of kind of Canada and Montreal, and don't you worry, he mentioned the Rougeau brothers in his statement of famous Canadian wrestlers or families who have made a mark on the business locally in that area. Pat Patterson was brought up. You were brought up. So I know you said you haven't watched current wrestling in forever.
I saw that pass
Okay,
by though.
I was gonna say, because current wrestling is aware of your contributions to the wrestling world.
I
And
think that, but I also think, I don't know, if this is not going to help me to get in the Hall of Fame, but I'll tell you my true thoughts about that.
okay,
If you're willing to go in a sellout crowd in Montreal and tell all the fans in Montreal that it's thanks to us that the business is like it is, then why don't you go ahead and give us the recognition that we deserve?
now some wrestlers I know, like Demolition, second longest reigning world tag team champions of all time. Then I think the Usos beat that record, and the New Day beat that record. But Demolition are not in the Hall of Fame either. And now my assumption for them is they were involved with a lawsuit versus the WWF over concussion protocols and money being kind of not given to the proper wrestlers.
But
Now I don't know your story on that half. Were you involved with?
Let's forget about all those things.
Okay.
Let's just look at the guys that were behind the masks.
Of
Let's
course.
look at Barry Darsow. Let's look at Bill Eadie,
Yeah.
who was superstar, the
I love
masked
him.
superstar for so many years. And I worked with him in Montreal when I was a young kid. And what a great worker! What a great asset! He draw money. He sold out arenas across the country, across everywhere. So Vince, you got to understand, you don't choose a Hall of Famer by your personal relationship with him. You got to choose him with his professional conduct and what he's done for the business. That's my point of view.
No, I agree with your point of view, but I don't think that's their point of view. I think their point of view is, oh, you've hurt me, well, I'm gonna hurt you, and they will hurt you until they forgot they hurt you, and then go, oh, you want to go in the Hall of Fame? Sure, come on in. Because I think the Rougeaus, the Mountie, those type of characters belong. Like, I love certain wrestlers. I'm not gonna name drop because I don't want to insult anybody.
Don't name any names.
I'm not gonna name, but it feels like Frankie the Bird will get put in the Hall of Fame before some people who crossed the WWF at a certain time and frame. And I don't know if this is true or not, but let's move on to good news. April 11th, 1997, you took on Hulk Hogan. And Hulk Hogan at the time, WCW, NWO, biggest name in the business. Move over Rock in Austin, it was Hogan. And this was one booking he took outside of WCW. It seemed like he did a favor for you. You organized an event in Montreal. How did this come to be? How did Hulk Hogan lose this match?
This is incredible that you say that. I love that man so much, and I told him again 2 days ago when I went to his karaoke bar, his hangout in Clearwater. I took a speech in front of everybody, and I told him, it's amazing what he's done for me, and there's a couple of reasons I think for that. People may not understand that, but I'm a smart businessman. I am. I'm a very smart, marketable kind of guy. I market myself very well in the business, and I think I've done everything I could in that possible way to get Hulk in Montreal. But the thing is, Hulk is a very nice person. Hulk. I never know if it was sincere or not, because I couldn't understand why he was so nice to me. But a couple of reasons I think why. The first reason why was because he wasn't getting on with Eric Bischoff that well.
Oh.
And I didn't get along with Eric Bischoff that well either, because he wasn't using us at all. So when I asked, I had a lawyer in Montreal, Cookie Lazarus, who was one of the biggest lawyers in Montreal. René Angelil's a lawyer, and Céline Dion's, and he was a big lawyer, and he was a friend of mine. And I asked him to help me to get WCW into Montreal. So we got the TV for them. We got the Molson Center, who was exclusivity to WWF, but we took the exclusivity away from them. And I told Eric Bischoff that I could get WCW into Montreal, Quebec. And then he was so happy. Then he was so nice. And I said, but I want to work with Hulk. And then so when I got with Hulk to work with Hulk, then there was something else that had just happened. I don't want to get into it. Please, let's not get into it. But it was a story with the British Bulldogs. If you want to go see the story, you could always go see on the Dark Side of the Ring. But I had a very big feud with the British Bulldog, where I stood up for myself because they were bullying a lot. And I think that Hulk had a lot of friends like that got bullied and that quit the business because of the Bulldogs. So when I stood up to the Bulldogs and I did what I had to do, then Hulk got a
You
lot of respect for me. It was like, because I was just a skinny guy and I'm not a fighter in life. I really am not. But I didn't want to become a McFly like Back into the Future. I didn't want to be that kind of guy that you laugh at all the time in the dressing room. I didn't want that. I liked the Rougeau name too much. I had too much respect for my dad and my uncle. And I think that Hulk took a really good liking in me when I stood up for myself. Because 2 weeks later, the Bulldogs quit and he never wrestled again after that. Dynamite Kid. It was the end of his career. He was
now
like,
we don't have to talk about that, but just to clarify, people who don't know, you punched Dynamite Kid in the face, knocking his front teeth out, and that set off a chain of events, which eventually the
after
league left.
after he beat me up the week before. The
Yes.
week before, he came from behind. I was playing cards with Mr. Perfect, and he came and we had a little personal conflict. And he came from behind and he slapped me off my chair when I was not expecting it. And he kicked me, boot me in the face. He made me really look bad.
Right.
And then it was either I do something about it or I've been bullied for the rest of my time in the WWF. So I did what I had to do. I'm not proud of it, but I had to do it. It was a situation like that. And I think Hulk, he liked that. And the other reason why also, I think that Hulk had a lot of respect for the Rougeau family. And so when he came to Montreal, for him, it was like, I remember him telling me, like, telling me in the dressing room, like, and I said, why'd you do that, Hulk, for me? I asked him after. He says, Eddie Auger, Johnny Rougeau, Jacques Rougeau, Raymond Rougeau, Armand Rougeau, Jacques Rougeau. He started naming all the Rougeaus, and it was like, for him, it was just like a way to give a thank you back, and so there's all these reasons mixed together. But Hulk and I, we meet today. And I gave him a big old kiss on the cheek the other night, and I took him in my arms and I took him, and he doesn't know half of the feelings I have for him, because my kiss was not only like, you're my friend today. It's not only because you put me front row VIP today. It's not only because the match you did for me in Montreal to put me over, the only Canadian to ever beat him in a 1-2-3 pinfall. And it's not, but it's more because of, if I made a living in wrestling so good, it's because of him. It's what he gave, what he done, what he created in wrestling. I think my kiss was all those reasons put together. And I have a picture on Facebook that I put. If ever you go on Jacques Rougeau's, I'm not private. How do you say it? Public Facebook.
Yeah.
You'll go see a picture where I'm giving him the kiss and he's laughing and I'm giving him this big old kiss on the cheek. But it means so much to me. People will never know how much it meant to me.
I'm so happy that you brought up Hulk Hogan in that manner, because over years, outside influences have changed people's perspective on him and compared his outside venues to his character, which are not the same thing at all. And people don't realize that over the years, he helped everybody. When he was on the card, it means you made more money. It means
Oh
more,
yeah.
and then that means that's more money in your kids, in your house, your mortgages. You're on the road 25 days a year. People can't get past one mistake in life. Hey, have we all made a mistake in life? Of
We,
course we
we
have.
we used to get in the dressing room, I swear to God, 25 days a month. And the first thing Raymond and I we do it and get in the dressing room is go look at the booking sheet to see if Hulk was the main event.
Of course.
Because if Hulk was the main event, we knew it was 20,000
I'll say
people.
there he is.
Yeah, and it was 20,000 people sold out. We were so happy. And you know what? Forever, anybody who wants to throw rocks, I hope they don't have a glass house, because you know what? If you want to take 2 seconds instead of, I was blessed in life with one good thing. I have a lot of faults, but one good thing I have.
Your looks.
I've never been no. I've never been. I've never been jealous of anybody. If somebody has something good, I'm happy for them. I feel happy. I do empathy for them. So if ever you're not that kind of person, you may start thinking of, maybe once in a while when you're pointing your finger, that take a mirror and look at yourself, and look at yourself and just analyze yourself. Say, have I ever done a major mistake? Have I ever done something really bad? But I wasn't so popular. I wasn't so it didn't get out so crazy everywhere. Like, a normal person in life could do something and it'll go unnoticed or unsaid. But if you're famous like he was, and you do make a mistake, and he admitted it, he apologized for it, you guys better take your fingers and bring him back to you, and in a hurry, because Hulk Hogan is the best person I've met in many, many years, except Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart's he's even better.
Well, yeah, that's why they hang out together so often. You always see two. If Hulk Hogan's around, Jimmy Hart's around, and vice versa. So those two clearly are friends and good acquaintances there. Though I think that's amazing that Hulk Hogan, out of all the people he lost to in the wrestling world, which is a very small, I bet you could count it on one hand, and yet you are on that hand of
And it's funny
Jacques
because
Rougeau.
you should have been there in the dressing room that night, because when I was in the dressing room that night, I had no idea what was going over.
Oh.
And when I said, no, not at all. I was going in to do the job. Even in Montreal, I was just so happy that he worked with me. It was just so notorious and prestigious to be in the ring with Hulk Hogan. So I wasn't in the same caliber as him. So when I got in the dressing room, but since I booked the show, I'm the one who booked Flair, Malenko, Eddie Guerrero. I booked the whole show. It was my card. I booked the show, and asked for the cards that I wanted to. Ric Flair was on the card, and so I booked that show. So when we got in the dressing room, and the what was it called? Also, the Harlem Heat was in there too,
Oh,
and there
yeah.
was a lot of good talent, and that Eric Bischoff permitted me to take, from WCW. So when I got in the dressing room that night, we're all there, and out of nowhere, I come in the dressing room. I guess everybody knows it's my show. So when I come in the dressing room, it's like Hulk takes the word up and he stands up and he says, "Okay, brother." He says, "What are we doing tonight?" So I looked at him and I started laughing. Like he's asking me, like, what are we doing tonight? So funny. And then he says, "Brother, don't laugh. It's your show." He says, "How are you beating me tonight?" And then I really started laughing. Like I thought, that's funny, Hulk. That's really, really funny. "I'm serious, brother." He says, "It's your show." He says, "It's your time tonight." He says, "Well, how do you want to beat me?" And then you could hear like a pin drop in the dressing room. All the boys are like, "Is this serious, or is this a rib?" You know? And you should have. It was an amazing night. So many things are amazing about that night. The fact that I decided to go out first because I wanted him to come out of just he's so great, and I just out of respect, I told Hulk, I said, "I'm going to go in first," and so I went in first, and I had my Quebec flag and my Canadian flag, and there was like 18,000 people, and it's so amazing because I know the business. I'm a smart man in the business, and I go into the ring with my flags, and I didn't call the shot. 99% of the people were booing me in my hometown.
Hmm.
They were booing me, and I was the babyface. He was the heel. And when he came out, the roof, he was NWO, and he
Right.
was at the peak, and the roof just popped up. I never called a shot. What a slap in my face. And, so what I did is I kept working the match as a babyface, and he kept cheating. And at the end of the match, when I did the small package, because I beat him with the small package, about 60-70% of the people cheered for me. I went and I gained them back. It's like I regained them back. And when I left, and it's so funny because when I got back to the dressing room that night, I came in the dressing room, all the boys were gone. There was nobody left in the dressing room after my match. It's like nobody wanted to be there, or nobody watched the match, or nobody whatever. But it was funny. And when I left the building, this is the most memorable time for me in my whole life. For me, when I go up there, I'm going to bring this with me. And I want my kids to remember this. I don't know what the lesson will be, but they bring this with me. Uh, you know what? When you come out of the Molson Center where the hockey players come out of the building, there's a big door. And the match is all over. It's been over for a half hour. So now I'm coming out the ramp to come out, and the door opens. And there's about, I don't know, there's thousands of people. And they're blocking the way, and they're going, "Hogan, Hogan, Hogan." And I'm going like, holy shit.
Uh,
And then I start coming out my door, but they won't move. So with my car, I start pushing them slowly like this, coming out, pushing the people, going up the ramp. And next thing you know is the door shuts behind me, the door of the building. And I felt like I got scared. I got really scared. And I looked around, my wife was beside me, and something crazy happened. I just turned around, I looked at my wife, and don't ask me where that came from. I looked at my wife and I told her, I said, "Lock the door behind me." And I opened my door and I pushed the people in my door. So the people were surprised when I pushed the door, and like my wife couldn't believe that I did that. It was too late, I was gone. And when I got out of there, I went like this, and as soon as I got out of that car, I went like, and I went and I grabbed the guy's paper, and then I grabbed a pen and I wrote my name down. And then Another paper showed up, and then another paper showed up. And then you wouldn't believe, I swear to God, may lightning strike me dead. About 2 minutes later, the whole people were screaming, Rougeau, Rougeau, Rougeau. I swear to God, that should be in a movie.
That's a beautiful story.
But it's amazing, and I can never explain that, why I did it. I just did it, it just came from nowhere. And what a great moment in my life.
I got some tears. You got me welling up. You got tears in my eyes. I'm serious.
I got some too when I think about it. I always get emotional when I think about that.
Because in an interview, you always I'm here for we're asking questions, we're having fun. But at the same time, when you find gems like that being delivered to me, it triggers something inside me as well as a human being, as a wrestling fan, as a fan of the Mountie, the Fabulous Rougeaus. The fact that you're telling me this story is seriously, it's emotional because I think we can all relate to a moment in time of our lives that we can remember, but it doesn't. Well, we can tell the story all day long, but you'll never be there in that moment to feel what you were feeling. Because if you could bottle that up and sell it, then you'd be a millionaire.
That would be good.
That's outstanding, man. That's a great story. You've done so much. That's why I was like, the fact that I got to, if no one knows, I hit enter on a keyboard, hit enter to Jacques Rougeau. Let's ask him for an interview. Maybe he'll say yes, maybe he'll say no. I don't know. My phone rings. I'm like, Canada? I knew who it was, and I was like, hello? Like,
when I saw Boston, I said, hey, man, I'm going to Boston, that's for sure. I want to say hi to my friend Sully, too. Sully's a good, I got to just take a second to say Sully, because when we used to come to the arena at the Gardens, we'd always had a couple of friends, and I'd say, hey, Sully, I'm sorry, I got to call you a groupie. But we had a couple of groupies that would show up at the airport, and at the gym and all that. Yeah. You need a ride? You need a ride? And me and my brother Raymond was so cheap, so we decided to, we'll get a free ride, instead of renting a car and this and that. And the Royal Service picks us up at the airport, brings us to the hotel, and he was a nice guy, Sully. So hi, Sully. Just saying hi.
That's amazing. The fact that I know there's some other wrestlers who had a different type of list where it was, if I'm going to this town, I can call so-and-so for a good time, versus you're calling people for car rides. Some people are asking for different types of rides, but
Sully and Dominic, the two guys over there, they were awesome.
Oh my God. Intercontinental champion, tag team champion, defeating Hulk Hogan at the height of the NWO when even Sting couldn't beat Hulk Hogan at Starrcade 97, and you're beating him April 11th, 1997 in Montreal.
God bless Hulk Hogan. God bless Hulk Hogan.
I know. God bless Hulk Hogan, and God bless Hulk Hogan for everything he did for the wrestling business.
Steve, before we go more and more in this interview, there's something very, very important I have to share with you.
Share it.
And it's like 30-some years ago, I had a falling out with Vince McMahon. A very big disagreement, and I turned my page on everything in wrestling, like everything that had WWF, anything WWE. And so before you start asking me a bunch of questions about what's going on today and in the last 30 years, I just want to tell you I've never watched one wrestling show in 30 years. So I don't know the talent. I know John Cena because I've seen him in a movie.
Yeah.
I know Kevin Owens because I taught him how to wrestle from the age of 14 to 18. He was my student at my school, but I don't know the talent. And so I just don't want you to think I'm an idiot or something. I just had a personal feeling when I'd see WWF or when I'd see Vince. I just want to get away from that. So I had my own company for 20 years, and I kept on wrestling. I kept on doing my passion. But I just want you to know that. So the fans that are listening now, if they say, Jacques doesn't know what he's talking about, well, you're right.
We will not predict this year's WrestleMania then. Though, why the falling out?
I knew Cody Rhodes because of my wrestling academy.
Of course.
My wrestling academy, that I have this huge contest I've had for 2 years now in Canada. This is my second year. And I organized this contest with my girlfriend. This is a big, big passion. And now this year, it's considered one of the biggest indie wrestling competition in the world today. So last year I sent some invitations to all the indie wrestlers, all the small companies around Canada. And I told them to send me a 30-second video. And I said, show me how you could talk and show me how your best moves in wrestling. And we're going to make an elimination and we're going to make a contest, like a reality show. where there's going to be voting. It's the people are going to be voting to see
nice.
who keeps on going. It's amazing, the show. And I'll put you my website later. So anyway, long story short is the 4 winners. There was 4 winners of $5,000 each. Plus they'd win 3 months at the Nightmare Factory. They were trained by QT Marshall, Billy Gunn, and Cody Rhodes. So for 3 months there, you spend those times with these guys there. You make a lot of contacts. And this year the competition, it went so well last year that all my sponsors joined in again, and I had more sponsors this year. So the 3 winners this year are going to win $10,000 each. And then they're going 3 months at the Nightmare Factory again with Cody Rhodes, QT Marshall, and Billy Gunn. And Cody Rhodes, I think, is one of the main events at WrestleMania this year.
Oh yeah, he's gonna try to take down the tribal chief, the head of the table, Roman Reigns. So we're gonna see if Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes can main event WrestleMania and see who will win. So obviously, if we are talking about current events for a quick second, you're obviously on the side of Cody Rhodes here.
Well, obviously, because hey, you know what? And I also know that he won the Royal Rumble.
Yes,
because the students that were there at the Wrestling Academy last fall that did their 3 months, they all wrote me and said, "Hey, Jacques, did you know Cody Rhodes won the Royal Rumble?" So this year, what a great opportunity for Canadian wrestlers in this contest, because I can't get working visa and working papers for the Canadian talent to come work in the U.S., and that's the big major problem. But what I could do. There's one thing that my dad told me when I was very young and explained to me. He said there's 2 criteria to make it in the business: is being at the right place at the right time and knowing the right people.
Yeah.
So being at the Nightmare Factory for 3 months and knowing QT Marshall, Billy Gunn, and Cody Rhodes, 2 are from AEW and 1 from WWE. If you make contacts there, and as a matter of fact, Jeremy Prophet, one of the winners, that was from Montreal, he keeps writing me all the time, and he keeps telling me like, "Hey, Jacques, me and Cody Rhodes, we write each other every week now, So he made a contact there,
That's
so.
Right.
So and they learned so much from these guys. When I stopped in the fall last year, I'm a snowbird now. I'm still in Orlando. It's my last day today, actually. I'm starting to go back north now. But when I came down this fall, I stopped at the Nightmare Factory to see my 4 winners, how they were doing training. I was so impressed, Steve, because I saw Billy Gunn and Cody Rhodes and QT Marshall taking bumps and like doing wrestling,
Yeah.
5-6 lessons a week with these newcomers, this new talent that's coming in, that just to subscribe. Some have never put their foot in the ring, but me, it was like my 4 winners were part of that thing, and I couldn't believe how they give out. So the Nightmare Factory is one of the greatest schools in North America right now. So what a great opportunity for me to relive my passion, to give back to wrestling, because I've always, since I was 4 years old, I was into wrestling, since my dad, my uncle, and my great uncle, and my brothers, and we're 4 generations of wrestlers, the Rougeau family.
Of course.
So I was brought up, I was 4 years old. I used to see Abdullah the Butcher come by my pool,
Oh, man. Now that's a sight. That's a sight I can imagine.
Joe LeDuc also.
Oh, yeah, man.
These guys had scars all the way from the back, all the way to the front in their head. And I was like 4 years old looking at that. And then my mom, she'd tell me like, "This guy's wrestling your dad tomorrow." I was like, "Oh no,
don't hurt daddy. Don't hurt daddy."
Yeah. But so I was around the business all my life, and I think that this Wrestling Academy, if you have a chance to put, by the way, Steve, the address on the bottom, wrestling-academy.ca. It's wrestling-academy.ca. Everybody could go see the competition. It's on YouTube of last year. And then you could be able to follow this year, starting in 2 months from now, the 7th of May.
Yeah, I was going to say in May.
And another thing that's so amazing about this contest, Steve, is last year, the finals. We were at the Club Soda in Montreal for the 4 events, the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. And last year, in the finals, QT Marshall was in Atlanta, Georgia, and he was at home in his living room. But he was on the giant screen at the Club Soda, and he was choosing the winners, the 4 winners. So after the competition last year, I called QT the next morning because I was excited and I really loved what had happened that year. So I said, QT, how did you like the event? Did you like this? He says, and then he told me, he says, "Are we doing it again this year?" And then I said, "Yeah, for sure." That's what I was hoping to say. I said, "Yeah, for sure." And then he says, "Well, listen, it's going to be different this year." He says, "This year, I want to choose the participants with you. I want to be on the giant screen for the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the finals." And then he gave me a bonus just a month ago. He said that he gave a nanny, like he says, so at the semifinals this year in August, there's going to be 20 left. and 10 will be eliminated. But out of the 10 that are going to be eliminated in the semifinals in August, he's going to choose one, and he's going to come wrestle live in the finals against one of the semifinalists that was eliminated. Wow. And it's his first time wrestling in Montreal, QT Marshall. So, what a great things are happening. And, last year's winner, Steve, not only that they won the 5,000, but they won the 3 months at the Nightmare Factory. They had a guy in Australia that was a podcast I did with him that he has a toy company. So he made 4 figurines of my winners, wrestling figurines. And QT Marshall gave a bonus again last year near the end. He had all my 4 winners wrestle on the first card that AEW ever did in Canada, in Toronto, Rampage Dynamite in Toronto, Canada. And my 4 winners, they wrestled on that card.
Wow.
So in front of 10,000 people. So, you're talking about indies that used to wrestle in front of 100, 150 people, 200 people, 300 people. And now they're going in front of 10,000. They got their dolls. They're on TV. So this wrestling academy is really booming and going crazy.
Their next step is getting a wrestling buddy. We'll have to work on that next.
We have to. So you could follow this competition, because another thing that's very important, Steve, and then we'll pass on to something else. But I wanted to share something very important. Last year, when I first made these inscriptions, send these invitations out, there was a lot of haters out there and a lot of non-believers, So I had 19 people that joined from Quebec, and I had 21 from Quebec and 19 from Canada. There's 10 provinces, and there's only 19 from all the other provinces because people didn't quite believe in the project. But now this year, when they saw everything happen, so this year, when we send out the inscriptions, we had 70 inscriptions, and there was only like 11 from Quebec, and there was like 59 from Canada. So if you go on wrestling-academy.ca, you're going to see the best talent from Vancouver, from Calgary, from Edmonton, from Nova Scotia, from Ontario. The talent is the best in Canada. And now, and the beginning on the 7th of May, when this all starts, contrary to a lot of people thought, they'd say, "Oh, Jacques, you're going to go ahead, of course, and put the good one against the not so good one. So at the end, the competitions get good." And that's not what I'm doing at all. What I'm doing is I'm putting all the monsters and the best together in the quarterfinals. So the 2 guys are going to get in there. The 2 people that think they're going to win this contest, and QT Marshall is going to come on the giant screen, and he's going to have to eliminate one from $10,000 and for 3 months at Nightmare Factory. So the anticipation is so big from the quarterfinals on, that's starting on the 7th of May at the Club Soda in Montreal.
My God, people got to check this out, man. If people aren't answering a Jacques Rougeau email, they are not thinking straight with their brains. They probably got the shock stick at some point. So, one final question, though. I want to go back to a question I wrote down, but we just kind of skipped over because we had so much fun. You worked with the Bushwhackers. Now, in today's world, them walking up to fans, licking them would not be suitable because of what happened during the pandemic. Go back to WrestleMania, I believe it's 5 in Trump Plaza. You take on the Bushwhackers, and this is something people always bring up in a list of WrestleMania matches. They're always like, "Was this a really good match or a really bad match?" Like no one seems to know on the list. What were your perspectives on working with the Bushwhackers all those times? It felt like forever.
Well, let me tell you something. Luke Williams, I'd wrestled him in 1979, in 78, 79 in Memphis for the Fullers. I knew him for a long time. The Bushwhackers are the word would be unorthodox. Is that a word? Unorthodox?
Yeah, unorthodox.
Clumsy, not clumsy, but just it was bad. They I don't know how to say it. It was hard to get, after working with the Rockers and the Hart Foundation, you can't go have the same kind of match with the Bushwhackers.
No.
But they were I love Luke Williams so much. He was such a nice guy. He many times in my career, I remember in Tennessee, he told me, "If ever you don't have a place to stay, mate, you come stay with me," and he was such a nice person. I don't think there's not one person on the planet that doesn't like Luke Williams. And then, but in the ring, it was like, and I gotta tell you some other thing too. It was hard for me and Raymond because I considered myself as really good workers, my brother Raymond and myself. And these guys, weren't the same. I didn't think as far as wrestling ability, they were at the same qualities as us. I'm trying to be humble here, but
they were biting your ass, okay? They were biting your ass. That was their big move.
To go into the ring and get that battering ram there where they just do a tackle with the headlock and have to do the job for them, 1, 2, 3 in the middle. It was so hard for our ego. It was so, but but people love them. You know, what a great gimmick. I mean, yay. Hey, how many times? Hey,
Yay!
listen, I go in conferences. I give conferences, you know, for the last 25 years, I give conferences in schools against bullying, and I do conferences for personal companies, and I got one stand-up shows. I do all kinds of things, and there's not one time that I don't go in my conference and say, yay, and whoa. Those guys are iconic.
Yes.
Like, you know, these guys are iconic. So you know, what can I say? I hope I expressed myself in the right way. I love you, Luke. I do. I love you.
Of course, I love the Bushwhackers too, but we all can admit when your finishing move is a battering ram by holding someone's head and slamming it into, versus you fighting the Hart Foundation, the Rockers, all these talents who are having these matches that are really interested in being a technical wrestler. Versus, hey, I'm gonna bite your ass, okay? And you're
You
like,
know, I'm
oh,
gonna lick your, I'm
yeah,
gonna lick your face.
yeah. I
I was
want
like,
you to
what?
sell it. I want you to sell it like you were attacked. Like, you're gonna lick my face? How many times are you doing this? Oh, we're
But you
working.
know, it was at a time where comedy was very welcome in the WWF.
Right. No, I 100%. I will always love the Bushwhackers. Any slighted comments from me are all full of love. There's no insult. There's always love behind.
It's like you know, it's like Coco Beware. You know, I love the guy Coco Beware. I love them, and I love this gimmick so much. You know, I everybody, you should see the kids around the world that when Coco would come. You know, and
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
but they loved Coco with his bird. You know, because so there's a lot of it's not comparable as far as, although he was a very good worker. Coco Beware, awesome worker. I worked with him in '78 in Memphis, Tennessee for the Lawlers and the Jarretts. And God bless Sir Jarrett, to see
Yeah.
the father that just died. I worked for him, and Coco Beware, you know, what a great worker, you know. So you know, he deserved that spot and everything. Like Jake the Snake, same thing with the Snake. You know, there's some characters that were just so good, you know, because even me, you know, when they came to the Snake, you know, Jake the Snake would come in the dressing room and he'd have his big green bag there with a big bow in there, and it was like, well, I'd hate it when he'd show up. I'd love it when he was on the card because we draw money. There's a lot of money, but I'd hate it when he was on the card because he'd put his snake in the shower,
Yeah.
you know, and then he'd put the water on it. So then I was always earlier on to him. And you know, guess what? I wouldn't shower that night. I'd always go back to the hotel and shower because I was afraid of snakes. So when he started putting snakes on people, I myself was going like, holy shit, he wouldn't do that to me. He wouldn't do that to me. And I was always afraid that I would be put in that position, you know,
Yeah.
because I have a little phobia about snakes, you know. And
It wasn't a small snake. That thing was a
ah,
giant. Damien was a gigantic boa constrictor, and the fact that they gave Jake the Snake Roberts responsibility for watching this thing while on the road 25 days a year plus.
oof,
And in today's world, I imagine the wrestling animal community would be like, you cannot take the snake on the road with you 25 days everywhere you go.
probably not. But you
They'd
know
have
what?
to.
The scariest thing was, Steve, was that I always had that thought. Like, you know, you, me, we've all had our bad days. What if that snake has a bad night?
Yeah.
He could really start putting a squeeze on someone.
You see some of those enhancement talents fighting Jake the Snake Roberts on episodes of Superstars the Wrestling Challenge, and that thing is not like laying on them. It is like grabbing them, and you're like, you know, this isn't the Mountie. This isn't Victor Rob Martel being choked out. This is some guy who works locally in town who's hoping to make a break, and he's being choked by a boa constrictor. And then you fight Brutus Beefcake. Oh, can we cut your hair tonight? I'm sorry, what? I have to go to do my real job on Monday. Yeah, we're gonna cut your hair tonight, though. Like, all these weird scenarios coming up in that time was so much fun.
But it was
Especially,
fun. It was great.
of
It was
course.
great.
I think the golden era of wrestling is what people call from 85 to around 92. And you were involved with so many memories, being, again, the greatest Intercontinental champion of all time. It doesn't matter how many days. It matters that you won the belt, because there are plenty of wrestlers in time. Hey, you brought up Jake the Snake. He's never won the Intercontinental title. Yeah. So
He's
just
popular.
saying. Just saying. He doesn't have that that title, tag team champion. So many things you've done. I got to say, it has been a pleasure and an honor sitting here talking to Jacques Rougeau, the Mountie, the man. Again, as we brought up, he doesn't like heavy metal. He doesn't like rock and roll, but he certainly does enjoy some Barry Manilow. Oh,
I enjoy you, Steve.
I am so happy you enjoyed it, because that's always the process. You hope the person you talked to today enjoyed the comments, the questions, the the observations, but I think we had a good time. And as I will end this one more time, the greatest Intercontinental of all time, it's the Mountie. Put him in the Hall of Fame, or I will riot. And riot means write a letter. I will.
Hey, the guys, don't forget wrestling-academy.ca. Go see the competition. It starts in 2 months. The greatest talent in Canada. Come and check it out.
May 7th. I'm pumped. You're pumped. We're all pumped. I'm Steve Fall. He's been the Mountie. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.